So I brought a little agenda with me on the topic of increasing productivity, uncovering costs of delay. And first, I want to define the context roughly. It's really like a short introduction to the whole thing about productivity. Then I want to focus on metrics because it's hard to tell if we are more productive tomorrow if we don't measure today and tomorrow and then compare anything. So a lot of productivity is also based on measuring different things. And then finally, I want to look at the different potentials for increasing efficiency. Almost everything I'm talking about here and also more than that is what you can find in the book that I co-authored with Johanna Rothman, and this is called Diving for Hidden Treasures, Finding the Real Value in Your Project Portfolio, which is actually available on LeanPub, and I believe only on LeanPub. Okay, so let's get started. As I said, defining the context only shortly is what I would like to do. And find important is to understand that productivity always relies on that we are measuring something, because otherwise we cannot really tell if we are productive, if we are more or less productive than we have been before, and how productive we want to be. So measuring is kind of a foundation for productivity. And on the other hand, measurement is also dependent on something. It relies on transparency. So only if we make some things transparent, often this means making them visual, we can measure them. And so transparency is, again, like a given or foundation for measuring stuff. And now it goes on. Transparency, on the other hand, relies on trust. And the point is, I'm saying here also on the slide, otherwise it's perceived as control, and even maybe you say, well, I don't care, then it's perceived as control, that's fine with me. However, the thing is, if it does not rely on trust, or if the trust is not there, then everyone will find a way to tweak the metrics in a way, so making things transparent that you want to see, or where people know this will be good for them, or hide stuff where they know this won't be good for them, so you can tweak everything. However, if we are in a trusted environment, then everyone wants to get better and wants to get more productive. And if this is not the case, then whatever we are measuring doesn't provide too much value. And this is really something that we all have to be aware of, and it's often also hard to accept, because we think, well, we are measuring stuff, and measuring is like hard facts. You cannot do anything with it. But I guess you all have heard this saying that you can only trust the statistics that you have tweaked by yourself. So that's kind of where we are going here. Okay, so that's the context. So knowing that this is kind of a chain. Productivity has the foundation of measurement. Measurement has the foundation of transparency. Transparency has the foundation of trust. So at the end, you can say productivity also relies on trust, which is very true. That I want to go on with looking at different metrics at first. And as you've also heard in the introduction, so my background or my field where I'm working is actually with Agile teams. So this is not a particular Agile talk here, but still my background is Agile, and therefore I'm also starting with some typical Agile metrics. However, some of them you might be able also to use in a non-Agile environment. I would like to start with the metric that's probably the best known in the Agile world, which is called a burn down graph or burn down chart. So the way it's working is that a team who is planning to work on stuff, for example, for the next 2 weeks, says like, for example, we want to plan for X amount of stories or features or tasks, or most often Agile teams plan on something that's called story points, so which is an estimation unit. And then with every day you are working as a team on those stories, you mark how much more do you have to do in order to finish what you have committed at the beginning of the 2 weeks. So the burn down means at the beginning of the 2 weeks, we have a lot to do, and with every day we are finishing something, we have fewer stuff to do, and that's why it's going down. So if everything would be smooth, then it would be just a straight line going down over 2 weeks, as it's shown in that chart here. Most often it's kind of a rough start, as it's also in this example. Very often it's even a rougher start that a team discovers on the first day that they forgot a lot of things to plan for. So at first often the curve goes even up. However, very often after a while it's kind of leveling off, and people will know how much they can commit to and how much they will be able to achieve in a 2 week period, so in a 2 week iteration or sprint, if you like. So this is a typical Agile measurement. The very important thing to understand is that the way I described it right now as a tool where a team can look at, well, how much did we commit for the next 2 weeks, and are we on track, and can we actually deliver everything we committed to? This is a tool for the team. So it's not a reporting that goes to any other place. It's a helper for the team itself to keep its promise. And so it's not something for example, for management. On the other hand, you can use a burned down chart also in a different way. For example, you can say, well, at the beginning of a release, you know that you have to deliver that many features or stories, whatever your terminology is. And then with, for example, every 2 weeks, you mark how much more is left to do. Or on the other hand, you can also see how much did we achieve already. So hopefully the curve drops down. Oh, and saying dropping down, some teams also decide to that they prefer to visualize that as a burn up because they feel a curve that's going down is too negative, and so they like to do it the other way around, which is fine too. However, so I want to repeat again, so the burn down chart, in the way as it has been created for an Agile team, is a team tool. It's not something that's a reporting tool which goes outside the team. It's still a typical metric, and it can be used in a different way if it's not used for inside an iteration, inside a sprint, but for the duration of a release. And then you can measure, well, how well are we progressing, and do we manage to achieve our goal, and do we need to do anything because it seems we are not getting anywhere. So that is a first example. My second example is also a typical Agile measurement, which is measuring the velocity. Velocity is the term of, like, again, in an iteration, how much can a team typically achieve, meaning delivering in this period. So, for example, how much can they deliver in a 2-week sprint? And again, you can use these story points. So of the stories you have delivered, you can use the amount of stories. You could also use the amount of tasks that